Sir, Saurabh sir. একটা ছবি। Sir. So we begin with the first speaker, Meghna Roy, and her title of the paper, Beyond the Titles, Unearthing Media Representations of Youth Climate Change Activists, student Loreto College, Kolkata.
Meghna, you will be given 10 minutes. Try to wrap up within that time, okay? And after every deliberation, we would like to have some questions from the audience at large. So we can do one thing, we can finish off all the speakers, then we can collectively take all these questions, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Meghna Roy from Loreto College, and today I'll be presenting a paper titled Beyond the Titles, Unearthing Media Representations of Youth Climate Change Activists. To begin, as an introduction, climate change is the main universal menace to our earth, and youth will stand the burden of this threat, according to Curie and Deschens. Lately, we have seen youth standing up and becoming campaigners for climate change in our future generations and in the present times. This qualitative study was led mainly on media depiction of youth climate revolution activists because of its practicality for discovering the intricacy or importance of the present adolescent voices and how they are being disregarded or overlooked. The study focuses meticulously on Swedish teen youth activist Greta Thunberg, currently 22, but then 15 when this climate protest was started by her in front of the Swedish parliament. The aims of the study are two aims are there: to inspect how youth climate activists are represented in the conventional media for the purposes of screening that socially created discourses greatly encourage youth depiction in the media. Secondly, to discuss the trials that children and youths both face when endeavoring to make improvement around the change. So basically, my research methodology is qualitative research. It attentions on the everyday abilities of daily or everyday life and pursues to define data that are beyond figures and charts. It aims to give manifold standpoints on a solitary topic to showcase a bigger and a clearer and additional in-depth portrait. For these details, I am implementing qualitative methods to address the media representations of youth climate change activists because of its practicality for discovering the intricacy of youth voices, how they are quoted. Some of the literature reviews I have given over here. So, according to Valkenburg and Piotrowski, children today are the most, or children or youth are the most well-informed cohort regarding technology or the present day technology that we are ongoing. And since interrelating or interconnecting with social media inhabits a huge portion of children's time these days as they're engaged on social media platforms and everybody is having a cell phone or mobile or any gadgets through which they can pursue the information that they want to. Secondly, according to Drottner, media should be perceived as not simple channels for the broadcast of information, but as institutionally rooted or deep, meaning making apparatuses that tie people across stretch and space, that is time and space as we say. After this, I have divided into two portions, that is conceptual framework and analytical framework. Over here, conceptual frameworks is, I have implemented the new sociology, sociology of new childhood. That is, and over here, conceptual frameworks give a theoretical foundation or background for the understanding how youth climate activists are represented in the media discourse or in the media, conventional media. My observation after implementing sociology of new childhood is, first is childhood as a social creation. Now, how childhood as a social creation, we understand that it is an unchangeable social construction structure. Secondly, this permits us to reflect that children are worthy of empathy and their thoughts, their decisions, not decisions, their thoughts should be taken into account and given importance and not overlooked. Thirdly, they are conscious in their own existence and they shouldn't be disregarded. Thirdly, children's normal lives are worthy of study in their own right or own path. Children, according to this point, children have the right to participate or partake in verdicts that involve them. Over here, sociology of childhood accepts children's efficiency in their own breath and without even without the adult control, that without implementing the adult control. Fourth, children are not inert subjects of social structures or societal structures, but energetic actors. Over here, it is meant that children are not who actively shape their own experiences and influence the social world around them, demonstrating agency, that is demonstrating merit and their thought process and the capacity or capability in their interactions with the society on a daily basis. Fifth, I come to the point of childhood innocence. Over here, childhood innocence represents a dominant cultural narrative that is places children or positions children as pure, vulnerable, and in need of protection and care, which can both empower and constrain how young people are perceived, that is the perception of how we should treat them, and before is the perception, and how that perception perception leads to the treatment of the children in the future. Next comes the intergenerational justice theory. Over here, just to sum up, intergenerational justice theory, as it is in relation to the sociology of new childhood that is based on children and youth, it examines the obligations and responsibilities that exist between different generations, particularly focusing on how current actions and decisions impact the future generations' rights, opportunities, goals, aims, or ambitions. Now comes my analytical framework. That is, I have taken the framework of United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child as a lens for examining how children's right to participation, protection, provision are recognized and implemented in the current context, or the that is the global context, that problem that is going on, climate change, and the study of my paper, climate activism. Here, as I mentioned about Greta Thunberg, child and youth activism, Greta Thunberg serves as a pivotal case study representing emergence of young people as powerful voices or in the climate movement, and challenging the traditional knowledge or notions of who can be an effective political actor. The methodology, as I mentioned, was under conceptual framework was sociology of new childhood. Under analytical framework comes the discourse analysis, and under there I have put forward Foucault's theory of discourse analysis. To begin, if we break the word of apart from Foucauldian, that is the discourse that is saying. So just to give a basic viewpoint on what is a discourse, it is a means of forming information that permits for the shaping of social relations through social standards, and helps in bridging the gap between adult and children when children are considered capable as compared or like the adults. Over here, Foucauldian discourse analysis is this theory in my paper is describing adults as cohorts. To begin with the first point, examines the power hierarchy or relations and knowledge systems, that is the intellect capability of the adults, that shape how different age groups are constructed and positions within the climate change that is going on, or climate activism discourse. I have developed 7 discourses after the Foucauldian discourse analysis. First was adults as cohorts. Secondly, it is enthusiastic actors. Over here, enthusiastic actors is like, since it's based on media, so different Twitter informations and newspapers, since it's a global movement, so different informations have been taken around from these sources. Adults as an enthusiastic actors, how Twitter as a source was pertinent to both discourses in describing Greta and other youth activists, and demonstrated the role of social media in shaping and amplifying the narratives that we had about the young climate campaigners. And another point of this enthusiastic actors is that was evident in the tweets that I gathered information from. Children were taking active actions to combat climate change, but they were being silenced by the political hierarchical structures of people sitting at the top of the hierarchy. Secondly comes the westernized perspective. So over here there's a global north-south perspective that is going on, and it reflects how media representations of youth climate change activists and the whole process, that is the activism, are often filtered through Western cultural lens, potentially marginalizing the voices, the experiences, the informations who were from the global south. And the advantaged position those who had were the global
Meghna,
north.
try to wrap up.
Okay. So, next is the unique and joint engagement. This explores how individual and collective forms of youth climate change activism contribute to the broader social and political plethora or the transformation process that is going on. Next is media as a stimulus, how it is acting or functioning as an intermediaries to select, frame, and perceive and represent the present information about the current climate change that is going on. Hierarchical and control relations, that is how the adults or the people sitting on the tier of the political hierarchy are dominating or responding to the youth climate change activists. Pushing aside children, how their demonstrations are, how their voices are being disregarded or silenced. After this, to sum up, after the 7 discourses, I had 2 questions which popped up. They were, how do the media epitomize youth climate activists, and how do discourses inform the way in which we understand youth climate change activists? Now, to conclude, the overall process has both positive and negative viewpoints that have, but to see on a positive note or to end on a positive note, media is acting as a powerful tool or apparatus and for the children who are effectually voicing their opinions to mold and shape the political guidelines and general outcomes regarding climate change. So these are some of the references that I've done.
Thank you, Meghna, for your nice
Thank you.
deliberation. If you have any questions, please take a note of those questions. We will take it after all the presenters have presented their presentation, okay? So thank you, Meghna. Meghna's article actually tries to explore how media portrays youth climate activists, and you are actually trying to say that it is often being simplified. Their roles are being simplified as emotional or heroic, while ignoring the deep political message that they are actually trying to convey. So what I particularly think that it calls for a more nuanced and respectful representations that recognize their agency and insights on climate justice, okay? So thank you, Meghna. You can take your seat. Next presenter is Aratrika De. Aratrika, please come up on the stage. Her topic is how are risks, as for example, climate-induced displacement, socially distributed along gender and class lines. Good afternoon, Aratrika.
A very good afternoon to the.
You'll be given 10 minutes and
Yes.
try to complete it within that time.
So, a very good afternoon to the respected judged, esteemed, and honorable delegates. My topic is how are risks like climate-induced displacement is socially distributed along the gender and class lines. So, we all know when it comes about climate-induced displacement, the first thing that comes to our mind is that it is environmentally and climatically affected. But it has a very proper sociological debate around how that it is affecting the major sociological populations, especially in the 21st century. When we talked about climate-induced displacement, this climate-induced displacement is occurring because of several risks, including floods, droughts, sudden climatic change, global change, etc. Now, these changes are producing and reproducing globally, universally, but it is never distributed equally because there are certain ingrained population that is suffering because of these ideas of class, gender, ethnicity. Now, I would like to talk about and represent my paper regarding what exactly is the cause behind this sociological distribution, which is not exactly proportionate, rather it's disproportionately spreaded along this population.
Aratrika, zoom it a bit because it's not visible actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay now? Okay. Now, as I said, it's a global issue. Now, whenever we are talking about a sociological issue, we need to link it with some theoretical links to proper get an idea about how it is intersecting between climate, displacement, and inequality. Because in society, when we talk about inequality, intersection is the most important term. Now, for example, if we understand about Ulrich Beck's risk society, if we talk about that, he mentions that in the modern society there is increasingly production of such risks, and which is due to the modern societies and which is controllable and humanly produced. Now it can be controlled. And according to Giddens' reflexive modernization, he speaks that we need to be conscious, we need to be aware of this situation, of these kind of risks that are produced. And we need to take the responsibility as well, but it is never distributed equally. Now, when we are talking about sociological facts, the first thing, along with the theories that come to our mind, is the real life scenario. Now, several studies have been done. I did studied few literature, and I found that several real life incidents, both national and international, like Amphan 2020, there has been floods in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir in 2014, and several other places where displacement have been done. For example, 8,12,000 people has been displaced in Jammu and Kashmir flood. In Bangladesh, according to the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, it has been seen that due to the riverside erosion, there has been displacement of several people, but this displacement has majorly affected one section of people, that is the marginalized section. Not everyone has been affected in the same way. And then coming to gender. Gender, yes, it affects both men and women, not only women. How it affects men? Men are expected to do masculinized, so-called socialized notions of masculine roles, such as hazards. Now, when they are displaced, they were in a certain position, but since they belong to a lower class, it's difficult to find new jobs, it's difficult to find after new relocation. And we all have heard about relocation, we all have heard about displacement, but how it takes time for relocation, it actually needs a lot of time and government policies, but how it gets implemented and what time period it takes, there hardly has been any research regarding that. Again, women, when it's about lower class women, class and gender has again an intersectionality, because it has been found that women from an upper class woman, they tend to believe nowadays in many villages also that upper class women least goes out and do work in the public because to maintain that purity. So the major hazards faced by the Dalit woman, like the lower caste woman, they have mainly need to balance both. And many times in many research, it has been shown that they are the woman-headed families, the Dalit women are the woman-headed families. Why? Not because of they are head as in, because they are a single-headed family. They need to take the whole responsibility of the family, not because of a higher position as in status, but a higher position as in responsibility. So after relocation, it is really difficult to find a new place, a new place as in when we are talk about human development, it's not about economic, not only about economic. According to Amartya Sen, human development occurs when the standard of living increases. But a section of people before displacement, they are having lower standard of living, and after relocation, they are just in a helpless situation and condition as well. Now, the loopholes that have been found is, they have been talked about when we talk about climate-induced displacement, we talk about the hazards, we talk about the immediate problems they are facing, but hardly we talk about the long-term effects they are facing. Hardly we talk about after years of spending their lives in a particular place, how do they relocate and settle in a place afterwards. We hardly talk about it. And also, we need more comparative study, localized study, because in sociology, when we are talking about a problem, it's not generalized. Every place, every scenario, every situation has a separate problem and it needs a separate solution. But we usually generalize when it comes about displacement. Okay. And I have applied few theories to link it and to understand about the situation. For example, conflict theory. This conflict, it mainly happens because when people are fighting for their access, less access of their resources, power, status, of course it's causing tensions. And this conflict is not about the inner conflict for displacement. It's conflict about also the probable hazards they are facing from the dominant class. Same goes for gender, and same goes for the other sections that belong to the marginalized group. Also, if we talk about environmental justice theory, it says environmental hazards, displacement, climate-induced disaster is not an accident. It doesn't occur all of a sudden. It occurs because of a pattern. It occurs because of inequality. Because as I said before, that these hazards are produced globally, universally, but is never distributed in an equalized manner. And lastly, I would like to say about a few approaches that yes, the government has taken a lot of approaches regarding this, but I would like to say that's completely an insight that when we are talking about government approaches, I would like to say there's a sociological concept called debunking, that is looking into the root cause of a problem. So in case of climate-induced displacement, whenever we talk about environmental hazards and all, we also should look into the root cause about each problem. And participatory approach, I guess, would be better, where people, we all, who has not been in that situation, we don't know about how to just be or talk for them. We put our viewpoints into their mouth. But no, that's not how we should. Participatory approach brings their opinion, their point of view, and their say. And I guess that is important because it's their problem and we need to know it from their point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Aratrika. You have completed within the prescribed time. So you are actually trying to talk about the poor and the marginalized women who face climate-induced crisis. Because they face those risks because of their access to limited resources, decision-making. Although decision-making is one of the part of the non-material resources that shows that gender and class inequalities actually shape the vulnerabilities. Yes. but I would be rather happy if you could also explore into the people of third gender, because whenever we are talking about gender, there has always been a stereotype between a male and female, because third gender people are also affected disproportionately. Okay, so thank you for your nice deliberation. Thank you. The next presenter is Debanko Saha. Her title is Phoenixes of Bengal Coast, Women's Struggle for Existence in Sundarbans. She is a student from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. And Meghna was a student from Loreto College, and Aratrika is doing her master's in Sociology, Calcutta University. So Debankar, you start your deliberation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debanka Saha. I have completed my graduation from the Department of History, Jadavpur University, and currently I am pursuing my master's from the same. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present my paper here. My topic for today is titled Phoenixes of the Bengal Coast, Women's Struggle for Existence in the Sundarbans. I would like to start with a brief introduction to the geographical specificities of Sundarban Delta, which is shared by two countries, India and Bangladesh, as we know. So Sundarban is the world's largest halophytic mangrove ecosystem. The location is given here. It is inundated by rivers like Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna, etc. And it shelters rich flora and fauna, including wild beasts like the Eschurian crocodiles, Royal Bengal tigers, etc., earning it prestigious designations like UNESCO World Heritage Site and Biosphere Reserve under UNESCO's MAP program. Like all other biosphere reserves, Sundarban is also divided into 3 zones. The innermost zone is called the core zone, which is basically the home to the endangered animals and plants and is monitored. The intermediate buffer zone is open for the researchers to explore and for the people whose livelihood is entirely dependent on the forest-based products. And there is the outer transitional zone where we find the human settlements. So this is a picture of the mangroves, very typical of the Sundarban region. We can find the pneumatophores there, the specialized aerial roots which grow upwards towards the air in search of oxygen because the soil is saline and waterlogged and therefore devoid of oxygen. My focus in this paper is basically on the struggle for existence of the women of Sundarbans. As Virginia Woolf has said, for most of history, Anonymous was a woman. I would like to begin with why I have chosen a study of women in particular. This is because despite equal and at times greater and fundamental contributions to the society, for instance, as mothers, the first groomers of a child, and in extension, the civilization, as we all know, charity begins at home, they have been deliberately silenced, ignored, and suppressed in the mainstream narratives of history or any branch of social science. As one of the fellow presenters, Shohini Chatterjee, said, the nation is often imagined as feminine. We have heard about Bharat Mata, the nation as a woman, as a mother goddess. But where do we find the common women? Where do we find their representation in that narrative of nation making? And And why is the case of women unique? It is because they bear the dual brunt of natural physiological peculiarities like biological processes which are very gender specific, like menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, etc., alongside the deep-seated patriarchy which is very typical of third world countries like India, Africa, the continent of Africa, etc. Apart from the environmental hostility which both men and women have to endure. Now about the title, why have I used the term phoenix to indicate the women of Sundarbans? Phoenix is basically a mythological bird. We often find its reference in Egyptian or Greek mythology as a bird that dies in flames and is reborn from its own ashes. And it's used as a literary metaphor for hope, resilience, and transformation. Likewise, the women of Sundarbans, despite being reduced to the ultimate stage of exploitation and suffering, rise from the ashes of distress, fight back, and adapt themselves to survive amidst all odds. So my second subsection is titled as Cost of Resilience, Gendered Environmental Impact on Physical Health of Sundarban Women. So the environment of Sundarban is not at all welcoming. It's a hostile environment, and the people have to endure frequent disasters like cyclones, floods, storms. The soil is at all not conducive to productive agriculture. There is lack of industrial infrastructure, irrigation, and most of the people, majority of the population, they live in hands-to-mouth existence, mainly based on forest products. The livelihoods are like collection of food, wood, firewood, honey, wax, etc. And these pressurizes and especially the women, since they are not, their occupation traditionally has been very much forest-based and mainly restricted to the household, their lives are mostly jeopardized in this process. They have to depend entirely on nature for their livelihoods. They have to stand in waste waters for hours each day for collecting crabs, prawns, and often when the men of the houses migrate elsewhere for better income opportunities, the women have to venture into the men's field, go into the forests to collect woods, and they often endure, they have to jeopardize their lives against the Royal Bengal tigers and the Indian pythons, etc. And apart from the general concerns like dengue and malaria, the women, as I've already mentioned, because of the specific, gender-specific biological experiences, they face gynecological problems like UTIs, irregular menstruation, severe menstrual cramps, and all these things. Other than pelvic inflammatory diseases, eyesight problems, body ache, back pains, because at times they have to bend, they have to stand in bending position for hours to collect prawns and crabs from the saline waters, which are actually infested with harmful microbes and excreta of animals, and therefore very harmful for the body. Here's a picture of the fisher women of Sundarbans. As we can see, they are standing in wasty water, and the water is extremely polluted. The next aspect I would like to highlight is a societal duality that dwells in Sundarban. That is the worship of Bono Bibi, that is the principal deity in the Sundarbans, vis-a-vis the mistreatment of the tiger widows. It's an instance of societal hypocrisy resulting from patriarchy and patrilineality. So Bono Bibi has two aspects in the context of Sundarbans. On the one hand, she's a warrior goddess, who, according to the mythology, had conquered the Badabon and saved the people from the clutches of Dokhinre, symbolizing the Royal Bengal tiger, that is the untamable nature. And she is also a benevolent mother goddess who is worshipped for protection against the hostile environment. Very interestingly, however, the very community that puts goddess at the topmost pedestal of power and trust neglect and exploit their own women. They impart the mythical but oppress the real. The tiger widows are ostracized as Opoya, which is the Bengali term for unlucky, and Swami Khego, one who has eaten or devoured her husband, basically husband eater. And there's a notion of transmissible misfortune, and there's this notion of Griholakshmi, as we know in the Bengali households, that the wives are considered as the source of wealth and prosperity for the families, and equally, if any misfortune occurs in the family, it is completely blamed on the luck of the women of the house, especially the wives. And therefore, when their husbands die, or any of the family male family members of these families die, it is blamed on the widows or the surviving women members of the family. They are tagged, they are labeled as inauspicious and ostracized. They are secluded in Bidhobar Gram, the widow villages or secluded quarters like Bidhoba Pollis. And often, since they have to venture often illegally into the core areas of the forests for earning their livelihood by trespassing the forest guards, they cannot disclose the news of the death of their husbands to the forest guards. Otherwise, they would have to pay with the penalty, which they, of course, cannot pay because of their poverty. And therefore, they have to continue appearing as married. They have to wear the sindoors and other jewelries which are typical of married women, so that the forest guards do not grow suspicious of any venturing into the core or illegal protected areas. And this results into trauma, guilt and fright, which scholars have labeled as bereavement overload. The widows suffer from mental disorders like dysthymia, recurrent major depression disorder, hypertension, PTSD, and even suicidal tendencies. And these are not only restricted to the widows, but it is also extended to the surviving other family members like the daughters.
Please wrap up.
Yeah. The daughters cannot be married off, and this helplessness is exploited by the male members of the society for hiking up the dowry prices. And the childless widows are labeled as banjas, as secluded from the families, because there's this notion that the women's role is, the foremost women's role is motherhood. And if they fail to comply with that, they are ostracized and they are seen as failures. And very interestingly, the frustration is not released on the god, but the surviving family members who are victimized. This results from an unquestioned and unshakable faith in the divine, and probably out of fear that abusing them might further endanger their future. Thus, even the widows refrain from rage baiting against Bono Bibi or Dokhindre, convincing themselves that it was probably any fault on their part that had triggered their wrath. So this is the Royal Bengal tiger. This is the cult of Bono Bibi and Dokhindre. The marks bruises, as scholars have found, domestic violence is rampant in Sundarbans. There's a case of a married woman of 20-year-old who was strictly restricted to the house and tortured by her mother-in-law and alcoholic husband for dowry, and even sent back home to fetch money for a business that her husband intended to start. And there was another curious case where a 26-year-old was deliberately forced by her drunkard husband to sit uncomfortably with his friends amid dirty jokes and verbal abuses, and even to have sexual relations with them. On refusal, he was tortured, and this led to a miscarriage. And there is also the desperation for male child as a risk-reducing factor, because they need diversification of livelihood to augment their income. Another aspect is environmental crisis and parenthood. Frequent disasters disrupt the production of food, and the mothers feel guilty for not being able to feed their children properly. This leads to malnourishment. And this is also blamed on the mothers. As we know, always the women are the women are blamed always as incapable mothers, but it's not their fault, it's not their incapability, it's just the circumstance that is forcing such inabilities. And there's this reliance on fast foods, and by which there's this corporate intrusion.
Devanka, please.
Yeah. And the migrant parents leave back improperly cared children who find solace in mobiles, TVs, and junk foods because they long for their parents, and the grandparents are burdened. So there have been certain efforts for women empowerment through governmental schemes, self-help groups, and NGOs, but while even the urban, educated, self-dependent women continue to face discrimination, exploitation, and harassment, how far can empowerment be conceivable in marginal, intellectually unenlightened areas like Sundarbans? There are reports of job discrimination. There are reports of sexual exploitation by the forest guards. The women are denied credit, mechanized transport systems, and therefore they cannot enjoy the benefits of these schemes properly. Towards the better future, with my presentation, I would like to urge everyone to contribute individually for a holistic grassroots empowerment. We can contribute through schemes like Teach India Fellow, through which we can impart education to socially backward groups, gender-sensitive schemes by the governments, greater youth participation in NGOs, and lastly, the most important point is that the men should be taught not only to support theoretically, but live in real life with empowered women and see them not as transgressive competitors, but co-fighters in the struggle for existence. And I end with a quote by Mother Teresa: "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." We as educated, responsible members of the society can, through small acts of compassion, courage, and awareness, create a reaction of change and therefore hope for a better world for the future generations. And on that hopeful note, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Debanka. Thank you. It was really a very detailed study, and you have actually tried to go deep into the struggles of Sundarban women, climate-affected Sundarban women, their struggle, their resilience, the leadership amid this climate crisis. And these women rise repeatedly from loss and different kinds of crisis, symbolizing their strength, endurance, and hope in the face of continuing hardships. So thank you to you. Thank you. You can take your seat. And the last presenter is Srijon Aich. Srijon is present? Yes, Srijon. Srijon is a student of Sister Nivedita University. His topic is Ecofeminism in the Digital Era, Women's Voices in Climate Justice.
My name is Srijon Aich, and I'm going to, and my paper's title is Ecofeminism in the Digital Era. So, like, this research paper explores the complex relationships between ecofeminism and digital activism in the context of climate justice, focusing on how women's voices are amplified and challenged in online spaces. Key findings of the research: the study, which used qualitative interviews and analysis of social media campaigns, identifies that digital tools are vital for ecofeminist movements, but their use is fraught with contradictions. The empowering potential of digital ecofeminism. Digital platforms offer significant opportunities for women's activism, amplification and community building. Digital tools amplify women's perspectives, fostering collective action and community building across different demographics. Transnational mobilization. Movements like Fridays for Future and hashtags such as climate justice illustrate how social media mobilizes transnational solidarity and highlights the leadership of women. including those from the global south. Connecting local to global digital storytelling enables grassroots movements like indigenous women's resistance to mining of South Asian women's campaigns for water rights to connect their local struggles to a global audience. Intersectional solidarity. Online networks are crucial for building coalitions, linking climate justice with issues of race, class, and colonialism, and moving ecofeminism towards more pluralist intersectional frameworks. The contradictions of digital ecofeminism. The research highlights several structural challenges which can be summarized in 4 paradoxes: empowerment versus exploitation. Digital platforms empower activists, but their underlying infrastructures, data centers, mining for rare earth minerals is itself energy intensive and ecologically harmful, creating an ironic tension. Global solidarity versus digital divide. Uneven access to technology. The gender digital divide particularly affects women in rural and marginalized communities in the global south. This limits equal participation, risking the reproduction of exclusion within the movement. Visibility versus vulnerability. Increased online visibility for activists like Greta Thunberg and Vanessa Nakate also exposes them to cyber misogyny, trolling, and harassment, which can silence dissenting voices. Activism versus commodification. Ecofeminism rhetoric risk being co-opted by corporations through woke greenwashing, which uses feminist environmental imagery for marketing and dilutes the movement's radical critique of capitalism. Conclusion and call to action. The study concludes that digital ecofeminism is a site of resistance and a field of contradictions. Its significance is in expanding ecofeminist thought to grapple with the material entanglement of global digital infrastructure. The paper serves as a call to action for policymakers, scholars, and activists to support and amplify women's vital role in climate justice, while simultaneously addressing the ecological and social unsustainability of the digital technologies that enable the activism. Thank you.
Thank you, Srijan. Srijan's work is actually about digital ecofeminism, which on one hand tries to amplify women's voices. Rather, he has tried to also consider certain contradictions, like online visibility often fails to create real-world impact. There is a disparity in the access to digital platforms, uneven access, and they all yes. Then these contradictions often try to mask the local struggles, actually, that the local struggles that these people, that particularly women, in particular, face or endure. So thank you to you. You can take your seat. I now ask the audience if they have any particular observation, questions, suggestions to all the paper presenters here. I now leave. Yes, please. Give a microphone. Yeah. Please mention the name of the paper presenter. Meghna, please come up on the stage. Meghna, are you there? Meghna? Meghna has fled away.
If anybody else has any
She's not ready to face an interrogation. but I haven't heard the question.
I should ask the question to you, sir?
Let Meghna come. Are there any other questions to any other paper presenters? Meghna is there? Devanko, please. But we have to find Meghna. We have to arrest her.
Devanko is here. Okay, Devanko, my question
Devanko, please come up on the stage so that everyone can listen to you.
is Devanka.
Devanka, okay.
Sorry. Devanka, you were talking about the widowed woman being victimized and that part. Do you think that women, especially widowed women, are victimization is somehow correlated to property relations or something like that in your study?
Of course. Of course, being a history student, I don't know if you have heard about the Niyoga system which was prevalent in ancient India. It was basically a process whereby the widows were almost forced to have sexual relations with their brother-in-laws to produce a male heir. And that was because they wanted the property not to be handed over to the widow, but to keep it within the family. And I think this trajectory also comes down to this day, that there is this question of property still relevant in case of the victimization of widows. And I don't think the widows are actually victimized, they're exploited. They are the victims, but they're exploited basically.
And one more thing related to this, it's just not a question, but out of my curiosity and interest in this area of research, that, witch hunting or dain protha is practiced in these areas. So is there any case where you have find these things related? Because widows are generally being tagged as witches, or women who do not have a son as their hair are being tagged as witches. So do you think, in your study, do you find anything like this? Or so?
In the context of Sundarban, I haven't actually looked for it, but there is this instance of ostracization of the banjas, or the childless ones, and they are even forbidden to touch younger children because they think that this notion of transmissible misfortune, that the children could die, and even the new brides, they were said to be away from this banjas.
Actually, they are being kept away from the mainstream society and all so-called auspicious rituals.
For the widows, she has already told that they are ostracized for being called or labeled as Shamikhego or something like that.
Thank you. Okay. Nice paper, thank you.
Ma'am, please. Please give her the microphone. Please give her the microphone.
What about their everyday strategies of negotiations? You're saying that they are victimized. So, how do they respond back? What is there? Like I was saying this to one of the presenters as well, in terms of their insurrectional politics. How do they kind of fight back?
Are you asking about the women in general or the widows?
Yeah, the widows, where, you're focusing on this particular group of people, right?
Okay, so many of the widows, they actually leave for better working opportunities in the cities, but when they come back, they are not, accepted in the mainstream society of Sundarbans, because there is this notion that the city life is, connected with prostitution and indecent lifestyle. So they are not accepted to the mainstream, and often they stay back in the cities and they work as migrant laborers. And the others, basically, they accept these things. I couldn't mention these things because of the shortage of time. There is actually a normalization. They accept their fate at times, and those who fight back are ostracized, and therefore they have to leave.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good news that at last organizers have been able to capture Meghna. So Meghna, please come up on the dais.
So Meghna, thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes,
So
thank you.
the thing is, childhood and youth, if you look at the new sociology of childhood, the way it has evolved in the last 30 years, these are separate conceptual categories. So, so if you are focusing on one figure, like a case studies, and then you have to kind of see which category you're focusing on. So I would suggest that you engage more with the new sociology of childhood. There are many new publications where one is talking about reimagining this field of studies, right? So from that perspective, you can also engage with the cultural politics of childhood in terms of young people as producers of culture. So maybe you can engage with writers like Sharon Stephens, Olga Nieuwenhuis, all of them. And the Southern epistemology, right? So also take a critical look at the UNCRC, right? And then engage with the Southern epistemology from that perspective and have a critical reading of the UNCRC. So maybe if you include all these angles, then your paper will become more analytical, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Meghna.
And for Meghna, I have one question to you. How do you think that the mainstream media framing of youth culture, activism, differs by gender? And what implications does this have on the public policy?
So being like a patriarchal society, in case of gender, dominant positions are always given to the male. And if in place of Greta, it would have been any male structure, so I think the
Picture would have been different.
picture would have been different. Since she being a child, then 15-year-old and a girl. So I think if it would have been some male or being in a patriarchal position or society, so it would have been a bit, the picture would have been different.
Okay. Any other questions to any other paper presenters? No questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Please
sir.
take your seat. Srijon is there? Srijon, please. Do you have any questions for Srijon? Anyone? Srijon, I have one question. How do you see digital spaces amplify the process of silencing the ecofeminist voices?
Sir, actually,
Since you have talked about so much contradictions in it, so this
Sir,
can be a
I-
contradiction in itself.
yes, sir. Actually, digital voices, particularly social media. In social media, we see that
Please.
those who conduct campaigns against those those ecofeminists who conduct women who conduct campaigns against these climate issues, they voice they address their issues through these social media platforms. So in that way, I included this.
Okay. So if there is no other questions or suggestions from the audience, I can call off the session. So thank you to all of you for your patient hearing and for your attendance. So thank you to all of you. So I'm now just calling off the session. Thank you. Thank you so much.
digital data access. And we have with us our chair, Dr. Shoma Chaudhary Lahiri, Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology, St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. Our first speaker, Ananya Ghosh, title of the paper, Addressing the Digital Gender Divide Through the Lens of Swami Vivekananda's Educational Philosophy, PhD scholar, Sister Nivedita University, Kolkata.
I don't need to go up on stage. Very good afternoon to all of you. We are already running late, so I will not prolong the process. So I request the presenters to take not more than 10 minutes to present their respective papers. Right? Thank you. So the first speaker is Ananya Ghosh. So you start right away, Ananya.
Okay, good evening everyone. I Ananya Ghosh, I'm a research scholar of Sister Nivedita University, and today my topic of presentation is addressing the digital gender divide through the lens of Swami Vivekananda's educational philosophy. So firstly, to introduce, Swami Vivekananda was born on 12 January 1863. As a child, he was a playful yet deeply spiritual and fond of meditation. He studied at Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar Institution and later at Presidency College, where he learned philosophy, religion, art, and literature. Alongside academics, he took interest in music, dance, and physical fitness. His spiritual curiosity led him to study Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Puranas. At the same time, he was equally eager to understand Western thought. For this reason, he joined the General Assembly's institution, which is now popularly known as Scottish Church College in Calcutta. He was also very much interested in European philosophy, and he studied it in depth. He was a distinguished spiritual leader and a social reformer of the 19th century India. He regarded education as the cornerstone of both individual empowerment and national development. The main idea of his philosophy was the conviction that women must be granted equal access to education for the progress of society, as it will remain impossible without their upliftment. He emphasized that the soul is beyond the boundaries of gender, and hence ensuring equal dignity and actually I'm unwell. Thank you. He emphasized that the soul is beyond the boundaries of gender, and hence ensuring equal dignity and educational opportunities for all was essential for building a fair and enlightened society. Today, the digital revolution has made education more accessible, but many women from poor or marginalized backgrounds still face big challenges like limited access to technology and digital tools. In one of my literature review, the paper titled as Vivekananda's Educational Thoughts and Its Importance in Today's Educational System by Shyam Sundar, he discusses that Swami Vivekananda's idea on education and their value in the modern world. Vivekananda believed that true education brings out the perfection already present in a person and helps in building character, self-confidence, and moral strength. And he believed that educating women was essential for the progress of society. As Vivekananda said, educate your women first and leave them to themselves, and they will tell you what reforms are necessary for them. He stressed the importance of giving women the right to think and decide for themselves. Therefore, Vivekananda's words remain deeply relevant today. We must not only ensure access to education, but also work to instill discipline, self-confidence, and purpose among young women, especially in the underserved areas. My research objectives were to explore Swami Vivekananda's philosophy of education, emphasizing his perspective regarding equality to all and women empowerment, to identify the key barriers contributing to the digital gender divide in India, such as socio-economic, cultural, and educational factors, and lastly, to propose for an educational framework based on Vivekananda's ideas that teach moral values and technological training to promote gender equity in the digital sphere. So this study adopts a qualitative descriptive research, and the study is based mainly on secondary data collected from books, journals, articles, research papers, and other online sources. Next is gender inequality and digital divide. Gender inequality refers to the disparity in rights, opportunities, and treatment provided between individuals, especially based on their gender. It commonly results in women and girls being denied equal access to education, employment, healthcare, and leadership roles. These differences start from very deep-rooted social tradition, cultural norms, and economic barriers. As we all know that from very primitive times in many communities there is a strong preference for son, which leads to providing better education and opportunities for boys, while girls are expected to focus on household duties or marry early. The decision-making power lies mostly in the hand of the male family members, limiting women their independence. Women are discouraged from traveling alone or walking outside home due to safety concerns or cultural taboos. And even in workplace, they face unequal pay, fewer job opportunities, and are also often excluded from inheriting property or family assets. And such inequality limits both an individual's potential and the progress of society as a whole. Promoting gender equality means ensuring that everyone, regardless of gender, has the same opportunities to learn, work, and participate fully in all areas. These are the causes of digital divide. So first one is socio-economic inequality. Access to digital tools such as smartphones, computers, and stable internet connections mostly depends on an individual's financial capacity. People from low income or disadvantaged backgrounds cannot afford these technologies. Next one is educational disparities. Education plays a key role in developing digital skills, but unequal access to good education makes the digital divide worse. Next is gender inequality. Deep-rooted societal norms and patriarchal attitudes often restricts women's access to technology, considering it a male-dominated society. Next is geographical barriers. The urban-rural divide significantly influences in the digital access. Next is policy and infrastructure gaps. The digital divide is often worsened by lack of inclusive and effective government policies. While the government has launched several policies and initiatives, but their execution is often uneven, poorly monitored, or focused mainly on urban areas. Next is psychological and cultural factors. Many people, like the older adults or those in rural areas, experience technophobia, a fear or distrust of technology, often due to unfamiliarity or lack of guidance. Cultural norms and traditional beliefs may discourage them to use of digital tools. The current scenario of women's participation in digital space in India. According to UNICEF report, nearly 9 out of 10 jobs worldwide now involve some form of digital skill or technology use. These jobs, however, are available only to digitally able and more men than women. According to the report, in developing countries, only 41% of the women have access to internet, compared with 53% of men. Women are 20% less likely to own a smartphone and are more likely to borrow phones from a male family member. This report also says that boys are 1.5 times more likely to own a mobile phone and 1.8 times more likely to own a smartphone than girls. In traditional Indian societies, women frequently experienced coercive control from male counterparts, which creates dependency and limits their freedom of choice. This reflects a broader reality, as gender inequality remains a pressing issue across societies worldwide, threatening the overall progress and development of communities. And as a result, women often miss out on the benefits of the rapidly growing digital economy. Restrictions on their access to technology, whether due to social norms, household responsibilities, or safety concerns, limit their ability to engage in online education, acquire digital skills, participate in e-commerce, or pursue remote work opportunities. This restricts women from having equal opportunities, reduces their role in economic growth of a society, and makes the digital divide between men and women even larger. Building upon the existing educational frameworks, which were inspired by Swami Vivekananda's holistic and humanistic educational vision, the following policies and suggestions are provided to help bridge the digital gender divide. First one is promoting equal access through inclusive educational policies. Vivekananda emphasized that overall progress of a country is not possible without the upliftment of women. To put this vision into action, policymakers can design gender-focused digital education strategies that guarantee equal access to technology and learning opportunities for girls and women. Existing programs like Digital Divide, Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao has already been started by the government, but it has to include target initiatives such as digital literacy workshop, affordable devices, and community learning centers for women in rural and unprivileged areas. Embedding value-based and holistic education. Digital education policies guided by Vivekananda's vision should focus on a value-based curriculum that promotes ethics, empathy, and responsible use of technology. Lessons on digital citizenship, online safety, and ethical behavior can be included in practical programs to encourage a respectful and inclusive digital environment for every individual. Next is strengthening teacher training and institutional support. To bridge the digital divide, teacher training programs should include modules on digital pedagogy, gender sensitization, and inclusive teaching practices. And teachers should also must be equipped not only with technical know-how, but also with the awareness to encourage participation of girls in technology-related subjects. Next is empowering communities through self-reliance. Swami Vivekananda's idea of self-reliance, which is Atma Nirbharata, provides a strong foundation for community-focused digital empowerment. Public-private partnership can set up local digital literacy centers where women learn not only basic technology skills but also entrepreneurship, online business, and digital learning tools. And next is integrating spiritual and humanistic perspective in technology use. Vivekananda said education should balance science and spirituality, and in today it means using technology for good, promoting equality, safety, and kindness online while helping people grow morally and socially. And lastly, to conclude, addressing the gender digital divide in India calls for coordinated efforts from a range of institutions, including government bodies, corporate entities, non-governmental organizations, and the educational sectors. Government policies should not only emphasize digital inclusion but also ensure affordable internet connectivity, availability of digital infrastructure in rural areas, and gender-sensitive training programs. Alongside this, equal access to quality education, skill development opportunities, and targeted initiatives to enhance women's confidence in using technology are essential. Encouraging women's active participation in the workforce, particularly in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and digital fields will further contribute to building an inclusive and progressive digital ecosystem. These are some of the references that I have referred. Thank you.
Can I ask you two suggestions that I have? Two suggestions that I have. See, there are many thinkers who have a vision of education. For example, say Swami Vivekananda, then you have Gandhi, you have Tagore, you have Aurobindo, and so many others, right? So when you use somebody, say you have used Swami Vivekananda's ideas to talk about how digital divide can be, gender-based digital divide can be
Omitted.
sort of addressed. Now, why have you used Vivekananda's ideals over others? That rationale has to be made clear at the beginning of the paper. That is one. The second thing is that when you, I know that, see, it's not a finished work and that you have scope to work. Basically, how do you, I mean, this is something that is based on literature review, right? How do you actually understand the scope of or the limitations or the difficulties or the challenges of addressing the gender divide on ground, right? Because you're a student of sociology, we have to have some kind of sort of understanding of what the society feels about these ideas, right? And then, because there are a lot of government programs which are trying to sort of spread connectivity and Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, but why is it not happening? Why is the divide still persisting? To answer that, you have to go to the people,
Primary
right?
sources.
Some kind of primary data. If you put in,
Yes,
then
ma'am.
probably your paper will become.
Ma'am, due to time constraints, I couldn't, but I'll definitely do
Yeah,
it.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. So the next oh, you have a question? Yes, sure.
Thank you. So, Ananda, just one brief observation, which is when you're talking about government policies like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, I think it would be helpful for your paper if you take a critical look at it as well, because through these policies, there's a lot of literature on it as well, where a critical look at these policies has been taken in terms of it promotes a sanitized version of a girl or girlhood. So I would suggest that you take a look at these writings, and all the best then.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Anuna, I have one observation. You have spoken about Swami Vivekananda's educational philosophies and how those are relevant in the digital age for women. I felt from your presentation, although I wasn't fully concentrating in the first slide, if you would have probably concentrated more on specific philosophies that Vivekananda had spoken about regarding women's education, and then connect that with the current scenario as to what is happening in the gender digital divide space, that would have made your presentation much more relevant and interesting for us, right? Because the majority of what you said is readily available for us to just, do a Google search and understand. So as a sociologist, it would have been nice if you could have brought in those specifics. The second last slide, where you had given 5 points, I felt that had you worked more on those 5 points and elaborated them more and sociologically explored them more using relevant theories and primary data, as Shoma ma'am was talking about, that would have made your presentation more, I felt it would have made it stronger, right? Otherwise, good effort.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
So the second presenter is Chandrima Shen. Yes.
हाँ पेन ड्राइव ফুল স্ক্রিন হয়ে যাবে আপনি দিন তাহলে ঠিক আছে এইটাতে আচ্ছা
A very good afternoon, everyone. I am Chandrima Sen, a research scholar of Sister Nivedita University, Kolkata. So I am very pleased to present my topic, that gender dimension of the digital divide in accessing health information and promoting digital health literacy marginalized elderly women. So we first go to the topics that we will cover in my discussions. That the introduction part, that we live in a time where health information is increasingly digital, for booking doctor appointment and teleconsultation to maintaining digital health records. However, not everyone benefits equally. Older women, especially from marginalized communities, face multiple layers of exclusion due to gender, age, socioeconomic background, and literacy. So this digital gap actually directly related with the health access gap, impacting their well-being and quality of life. So in my discussion, there are two terms, that the digital divide and the gender divide, okay? So what is digital divide? That the digital divide refers to the gap that between those who have access digital technologies and who don't actually. And when we add gender to this term, that is the digital divide, it becomes clear that women, particularly older women, face greater barriers in accessing, using, and benefiting from technology. And this is not merely a technological problem, it is a social and structural issues also. Now we go to the next slide. This is the relevance of the topic, that the demographic urgency. So what is the demographic urgency in my topic? That India is undergoing a demographic shift with rapidly expanding elderly population projected across 300 million by 250. The second is the persistent digital divide, that despite rapid digital growth, significant disparities persist, that NFHS shows that only 33% of Indian women have ever used internet compared 57% of men. Then the third one is health system transformation, that India's national digital mission and Digital Health India initiatives moving health services, that appointments, records, and teleconsultations online. Then the intersections of inequalities, that the problem is not just about age or gender separately, but the intersection of age, gender, poverty, literacy, rural and tribal residents. Then the equity and human rights perspective, that access to health information is a determinant of health and a matter of right. Digital exclusion undermines of SDG 3, that is Sustainable Development Goals, health and well-being, and SDG 5, gender equality. Then the last one is a policy and practice implication. The topic is directly relevant to the policymakers, NGOs, and health practitioners. Now we go to the next slide. This is the objectives of the study, that to analyze the gender dimensions of the digital divide, to assess pattern of digital literacy, to identify barriers to equitable access, to evaluate the impact of digital exclusion on health outcomes, to document existing initiative and interventions, to promote strategies for promoting digital health literacy, and to contribute to policy and practice. Now go to the next slide. This is the aging population and the global shift. So according to 2024 report by World Health Organization, the proportion of the people ages 60 years and older is steadily rising, and in the demography is expected to double by 2050. That I have already said that in 2050 it's about 386 million. And this is the diagram that is showing that the proper increasing rate of elderly population. And this is the internet access by group through this diagram, that male elders and female elders general, male elders marginalized and the female elders marginalized. Then the internet access by genders, that the women 33% and men 57%. Now what is gender digital divide? That the gender digital divide means the gender divide refers to the gap between the men and women, and it basically highlights some inequalities in different dimensions, that is access, digital skills, uses, opportunities, safeties, and inclusion. So what is the access dimension? Thus, women are less likely than men to own digital devices or have reliable internet connectivity. Number 2 is the digital skills. Women often have lower level of digital literacy, confidence in using technology, uses that even when women have access, they may use digital platform less frequently or in more limited way compared to men. What is the opportunities? That women benefit less from the economic, educational, and health opportunities provided by digital technology. Then the last, safety and inclusion, that is online harassment, and there are some cultural norms, gender norms, and some cultural restrictions are there, okay? Then the next slide. So there are some gender disparities in the health of marginalized older women. So there are different dimensions of the gender disparity, that is the health disparities, access to health care, and social and economic determinants, digital and information divide. So under health disparities, that is the higher rates of chronic illness and access of health care, there are some different kind of barriers, that is geographical barriers, social barriers, educational barriers, and the cultural barriers also. Then the social and economic determinants, that the widowhood, then the illiteracy, and digital and informational divide means marginalized older women are less likely to use smartphone. So they have no ownership of smartphone or any kind of POS device. Then the specific digital barriers of elderly women, that economic, that I have already said, that economic barriers, educational barriers, social and cultural barriers. And then the next slide, the diagram that it showed that there are the whole scenario of these, how gendered barriers lead to digital information gap. And this is the reasons for low digital health uses. That is no device 30%, health and accessibility issue 10%, cultural restriction 15%, 15.0%, cost of data devices 20.0%, and low digital skill 25.0%. Now is the divide, how the divide affects health access. So the digital divide affects not just communication but the health outcomes, that elderly women may not access government health scheme and available online. They may lack information on preventive care of chronic disease management. They have limited digital access, restrict their ability to schedule appointment or access teleconsultation. And during crises like COVID-19, this exclusion became painfully evident. Now, what are the efforts to bridge the gap? So there are several initiatives that try to bridge the gap. That Digital India program and PMG Disha, means the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Shakshara Abhiyan, are the training rural citizen in basic digital skill. Then the National Digital Mission, NDHM, is simplifying health records and teleconsultation system. NGOs like Help Age India and Digital Empowerment Foundation conduct digital literacy workshop for older women. And some states are using community digital centers and SHG-led models train elderly women in using health apps. Another initiatives are there, that is the role of technology and design, that voice-based health apps in regional languages, that they can easily access that. Telemedicine kiosks in villages, easy to use interfaces with icons instead of text, and integration of ASHA workers as digital health navigators for the elderly. And the most important thing and the most important effective way to address digital divide is that community-based solution. Now the question is, what is community-based solution? There are the three dimensions or the three key points of that intergenerational learning, women's self-help group, and community health volunteers. So under the intergenerational learning, young people teaching elders to use smartphones. Then the women self-help group incorporating health tech training and community health volunteers demonstrating how to book appointment to access health videos and healthcare system. Now we go to the next slide. That is strategies to promote digital health literacy. So there are different recommendations to promote digital health literacy that integrate digital health literacy into national elder care policies, provide free or subsidized smartphone and data packages for elderly women in marginalized areas, train frontline health workers in digital mediation, then encourage public-private partnership for localized solution, collect gender and age disaggregated data to guide interventions. So bridging the gap is not just about connectivity, it's about capacity, care, and confidence. Digital health inclusion must become a right, not a privilege. We need systems that basically listen the condition and the realities of elder women, their fears, their strengths, and their context. So empowering them digitally empowers entire communities. So these are the different policies and principles. So to conclude, the gender-digital divide in health is not merely a technological issue, it's a social justice issue. When we enable elderly women to access digital health, we move closer to achieving universal health coverage and gender equality. As researchers, policymakers, and practitioners, our task is clear: to ensure that the digital revolution leaves no women, no elder, and no community behind. Thank you. This is the source and resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much for finishing within time. This is the work that you're doing for your PhD?
Yes.
So at what stage of the work are you in?
This is the preliminary stage.
Preliminary stage,
yes.
right? I was just thinking that because you presented, so all the policy prescriptions that you made in terms of what is being advocated by the government of India to increase digital literacy among elderly women, I think you should see it in the field whether it's really happening.
Yes.
There are so many claims, but actually is it happening? Is the gap being bridged? One is the urban-rural gap, the other is the gap between elderly and the younger generation.
Yes.
All what is being advocated, is it really happening? This is something that is a worthwhile exercise by itself.
Yes.
I would think. Then your work will be much appreciated.
Yes.
The other thing that I want to mention about your presentation is, you began by saying that there is a digital divide and elderly women are affected more, specific with regard to health. So health is also the sector in which you are looking at. Now, gradually as you proceeded, there was an absence of information on marginalized women.
Yes.
Right? You mentioned in the initial slides that you are looking at, there's a difference in the among elderly who are from the lower classes. Class is a very big factor, along with gender. So the interwoven aspect of class and gender should run through your paper.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Just one thing I would like to know, that one pie chart when you were showing that what are the causes for not getting access to the health apps and like no devices, and so there was one particular point in the pie chart, that is cultural constraints. So what is the cultural constraint?
Cultural constraint means there are some restrictions in the family that what you should do, what you should not do.
Now when you are, just interrupting you, sorry, sorry. When you are talking about elderly women, so elderly, that they are the most aged in the families. তাদের উপরেও ওই কালচারাল কনস্ট্যান্টস
তাদের উপরেও কালচারাল রেস্ট্রিকশন থাকে, তাদের আদার্স যারা ফ্যামিলি মেম্বার, বিকজ দে আর আইসোলেটেড অ্যান্ড দে লিভস অ্যালোন, অ্যান্ড হোয়াট ইউ শুড ডু, মাঝে মাঝে দেখা যায় ছেলে এবং মেয়েরাও তাদের ওপর ডমিনেট করছে। সো দিস ইজ দ্য কালচারাল রেস্ট্রিকশনস। ওকে, সো দ্যাট অ্যাকচুয়ালি আই ওয়ান্ট টু সে দ্যাট।
in this my side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam.
Thank you, Chandrima, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Just one thing, when you are mentioning marginalized women, I don't think we got to hear from you about the location of the study. Where was the study located? Right? Yes, but then where she will do it, yeah, she has not mentioned it, right? So, you know, that would majorly make a lot of difference to, you know, the findings and all of that, your methodology, all of that. And you, if I heard you correctly, you mentioned about HelpAge India, right? For example, many of these NGOs who work with elderly people, for example, Dignity Foundation, which is pan-India, right? They work with the middle class or the upper middle class. The focus is not on the marginalized communities, right? So in terms of that, you know, geriatric care and all of that, what is happening with women in the marginalized sections, right? For example, in Kolkata, if you go to the Robindra Sarobar area in the morning, you see rows of widows sitting there, you know, to beg. Yeah, so this is a very real situation that elderly women are many a times they are being thrown out of their families and they are on the streets.
Yes.
Right, so how are these NGOs also catering to such women? Maybe in your study you could also include that in terms of taking a critical look at civil society engagement. And I'm sure you're also taking a close look at the new legislation which came up, right? Few years back,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. I keep in mind.
Yes, thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Chandrima. Thank you.
So the next presenter is Shulogna Shingho.
You know.
তারপর স্লাইড শো হবে ঢোকাও এবার
Shulogna, you have 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Today I will be presenting my research on aging and digital expulsion, a sociological inquiry into inequality and coping among older adults in India. So what do you mean by aging? Aging is a natural process and it is an irreversible process where we can see that a child who is giving birth, who is getting older day by day, and the last stage is the elderly stage. We in India we witness that it is there is a rise of unpredictable elderly population which is projected in to like 347 millions by 2050. This demographic transformation coincides with shifts in family structure and the professionalism of digital technologies emerging as a major sources of new inequalities for older adults. The digital divide is more than a gap in access. It is a profound social issue that can lead to isolation, dependency, and restricted participations for the elders. Limited digital literacy means by many older Indians struggle to access healthcare, financial resource, and social support, raising urgent questions about dignity and expulsion. This presentation explores how I am doing the digital excursion in experiencing by elders in India and what measures are needed to build a truly inclusive digital future. here my objectives, that how does the digital divide figures into broader sociological discussion concerning modernization inequality and the lived experience of older population, and what is the pressing necessity for fostering inclusive digital culture that transcends mere access and promote meaningful participation among aging communities. So I did methodology on secondary data. This is still a working paper, so I took from articles and some books and journals. Here are my key findings, that how that only 13% of Indians over 60 uses the internet, with rural elders and women most effectively. Digital exclusion limits access to healthcare, financial services, and social networks, increasing isolation. Age, gender, education, and local location intersects to deepen the digital divide among elders. And community literacy program, age-friendly technology, and inclusive policies are critical to empower elderly digital participation. This is one of my chapters, that how digital media is connected with the lives of elderly people. Like, digital media enables elder to communicate, access information, and stay socially connected, and many faces challenges due to limited skills and access, increased isolation and dependency. Elder users digital platform to maintain family ties and community engage, but struggles with fast changing technology, and digital exclusion affects borders, sociological inequalities linked to age, gender, education, location, and inclusive policies and digital literacy programs are essential to empower and support elder participation in the digital world. So my paper is mainly focusing on that how elders, like the older generations, are, it's due to the fast changing, like in the 21st century, it is very fast going off like digital era, and it is very hard for the elders to cope up with the generation and the trends and everything which is going on, and this is creating a like isolations among them, as they are once were the most important people in the family, and now suddenly their importance are getting lesser and lesser because they cannot connect with the younger generation, because they are not able to connect through internet. And this is my conclusion, that how digital exclusion among elder adults affect deep social inequalities linked to age, gender, education, and location. Lack of digital skills increase isolations and dependency, reshaping elders' traditional social roles, and like digital media can enhance social exclusion and access to severe. It's supported by age-friendly policies and literacy programs. Addressing digital exclusion is essential to uphold the dignity, autonomy, and participation of aging population in a fast-changing digital world. These are my references. Thank you.
Shulogna, thank you so much. See, I want to suggest something to you, that is, when you are writing a paper based on a review of literature, when you say 13% of population has done this, you must write the reference.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Otherwise, who has said it becomes always. The next question is who, according to whom, right? So you have to be very careful, because it's a paper based on review of literature, right? The second thing is, always when you are, suppose you have 3 objectives, right? In one slide, one objective should be addressed.
Okay.
In 3 slides, at least 3 objectives will be addressed, and because you're doing a PPT, if you were speaking, it would have been different, but if you are trying to reach out to the audience, in separate slides, 3 different objectives or 4 different objectives accordingly, if you present, then the data is very, very clearly visible. Now, the suggestion to you is that when you say digital exclusion, see, digital exclusion, we all know that men and women, rural and urban, upper and lower, etc. It has to be understood in an intersectional way. That is, the caste, class, gender, ethnicity, or, how do they intersect with each other and contribute to digital exclusion, right? So when you actually do the work, you present your data in an intersectional manner rather than just plain digital exclusion, right? Then that will make your work sociological. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next person is Rajdeep Mukherjee.
Hello. Good evening, Chairman, professors, and others present here. Ma'am, there are two reasons to be nervous. One is today is my birthday, and the second one, this is my first paper presentation ever.
Not ever, the beginning of more paper presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
All the best. Take 10 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. I'll try to wrap up by 10 minutes. My presentation is titled From Margins to Mandap, LGBTQ plus participation in Kolkata's Durga Puja pandal. I would like to say, as the Durga Puja feeling is still a bit fresh memory for every one of us, so I would like to take that memory ahead and go ahead with it. In this section, I'll share the key findings and discussion from my study focusing on how inclusion of queer participants in negotiated within the major cultural and religious festivals. Durga Puja embodies Bengal's culture and social identity beyond religion. Traditionally male dominated, with women and queer groups in limited roles. Legal reforms such as Section 377 in 2018 and queer activism have expanded participation. Urban change and social media foster visibility and inclusion. Decision-making and creative roles remain largely exclusive. Study explores how committee balance tradition, modernity, and diversity. Reflects broader shifts in gender norms and civic culture in Kolkata. Durga Puja has always been a male-dominated thing since the starting. All the decision-making and the arrangement of monetary fund or anything is done by male since the starting. As it was started in 1606 by Raja Krishna Chandra Rai, and then it is said, like, we see that the male dominance is much more there. Women are only kept limited to the rituals to set the puja ingredients and other things, but not in decision making. And if I take queer groups in that, they are totally excluded. If I talk about in the past. Methodology: qualitative research with an ethnographic orientation to study LGBTQ inclusion in Kolkata's Durga Puja communities, semi-structured interviews with 3 groups: puja organizers, LGBTQ activists, participants, and festival attendants. 30 to 40 participants selected through pervasive and snowball sampling for diverse representation, participants, observation at puja pandals, and analysis of newspaper, TV, and social media to capture public discourse, thematic coding, and triangulation of interviews, observations, and media to reveal pattern of inclusivity, resistance, and cultural change. I've taken 2 objectives for my study. The first one is to study the nature of participating of LGBTQ plus in Durga Puja of Kolkata. My second objective is to comprehend the social and the cultural processes that facilitate or impede the integration of marginalized gender groups into puja committees and with respective to inclusivity and mirror widened trends in gender norms and urbanity. I would like to also include that not just puja community, but also for the judgment, which we have been seeing for past 7-8 years, which was started by Asian Paints, Sharad Chomman. And from there, the theme pujo or the essence of the theme has come up. Earlier that theme pujo wasn't that much renowned around the city. Review of literature that I have done, I have divided into sections like cultural and national identity. Durga Puja functions as both as religious and cultural institution, shaping Bengali collective identity and nationalism. Durga Puja is not just an event or just an religious puja for us. Durga Puja is more than just an event for us. It's an emotion for us. And obviously, if someone says something about Durga Puja, we will do something. We'll reply to something with a good reply. Then gender participation. The festival patriarchal organization restricts women's role of ritual assistance while men dominate decision making and artistry. Legal and social shift, decriminalization of homosexuality and legal recognition have increased LGBTQ plus visibility in public festivals. Emergence of queer inclusion studies shows how gradual LGBTQ participation in urban spaces and cultural events through pride marches, cyber activism, and inclusive pujo collaboration. Theoretical insights I have taken are Butler's performity and Lever's production of space explain how festival sites of, it becomes how negotiating gender identity and belonging with urban culture. My findings are the visibility in Durga Puja's pandal and in Durga Puja has increased through symbolic gestures like rainbow muftis and non-binary depiction of Durga. However, echoing performity, such acts often serves as tokenism performative inclusion without structural change absorbed into the festival's spectacle, reinforcing civic image over genuine social transformation. LGBTQ plus inclusion in Durga Puja is shaped by respectability politics, where committees frame acceptance morally. Everyone is God's child. To avoid controversy, and I will say everyone is God's child, I will use a vernacular term here. মায়ের চোখে সবাই এক। মায়ের চোখে কে ছেলে কে মেয়ে who is something else, whatever they consider themselves as, the third gender, মায়ের চোখে সবাই same, সবাই সমান. So there is no tag to Durga Puja, like it is for the generalized people, it is only for the people which are biologically tagged with. It is a festival for everyone. Yeah. And younger organizers see inclusivity as urban modernity, yet older conservative networks sustain heteronormative control, limiting structural change within religious cultural space. Here I would like to add one point, that is, like now we have seen many old houses, colonial structures, houses that has turned into cafes. They are keeping the colonial history, but also on the other hand, they are also putting diversity and matching with modernity. So we are not forgetting our tradition, we are just updating our tradition with the time. Despite 2018 decriminalization, LGBTQ plus members are largely excluded from Durga Puja's decision making. Male-dominated communities assign only symbolic roles reflecting precedented gendered hierarchies. Transgender women face ritual stigma and purity barriers, restricting genuine inclusion despite legal and urban process. As we all know that if we want the people or the majority to abide something, we need to first make it legalized. If it is legalized, then and only people will slowly abide it. But there are still a bit of stigma, I'll say. Like, for an example, I'll quote that whenever we encounter them on road, whenever now we are like grown up, but when we were small, whenever we used to encounter them with our parents, they used to say, just don't go close to them, be aside. They have also not like encountered them ever. They have a they are thinking before, just because it has been passed down through the generation. The stigma is passed down through generation that have your father ever encountered or have your father ever talked with that person? No. It is already pre-constructed that there might be something wrong that they can do, which actually is something else, which they are not. If apart, like I'll say, if someone can actually talk to them, at least for 5 minutes or anything, they are just like normal people. It is just that we have to change our lens of looking at them, of talking to them, and having a preconceived concept about them. Then I'll come to legal reforms. Legal reforms, digital activism and youth culture are driving LGBTQ plus inclusion in Durga Puja. Post Section 377 decriminalization legitimized queer identities. Social media amplifies visibility and challenges exclusion. Youth-led creativity frames inclusivity as progress collectively, reshaping civic culture despite enduring hierarchies. LGBTQ plus inclusion in Durga Puja signals changing urban civic culture. Following queer participation reshapes public space and notions of belonging. Inspired by symbolic inclusion, challenges of heteronormatively legitimizing diverse gender expression and promoting inclusive urban citizenship. And here I would like to conclude by saying that the research uncovers a paradoxical terrain. With Durga Puja has become an arena for symbolic queer visibility, structural inclusion within its organizational and ritual hierarchies is circumcised. Facilitators like legal reforms, youth activism, and digital media are broadening the culture imagination of inclusivity, but traditionalist resistance and institutional inertia continue to be the powerful obstacles. Theoretically, the results confirm that urban festivals are central spaces through which gender performity of Judith Butler and spatial production of liver interact to produce civic identity, Durga Puja is therefore not only a religious festival but a public socio-cultural text, one reflecting and mediating the change or the changing gender norms of modern day. Thank you so much. And here are my references. I have kept few. Thank you.
Rajdeep, thank you for the first presentation. This was very good.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Just that you're very young and you need to relax a bit. So the thing is, my comment to this paper is this, that a few cases of Durga Pujas where they are included or where they have been quite deliberately or openly excluded would have probably given a different kind of a feel to the presentation, right? So the thing is, when you probably, not probably, you have mentioned that you have spoken to 30-40 people. So some quotes, some actual instances of when they have felt included and at which times they have felt excluded. And some puja committees, talking to you have said you've spoken to puja committee members. Yes. What do they feel about this phenomenon? What do the LGBTQ people themselves feel about? What does the general population which is visiting pandals, how do they see it? Some sort of examples from, or quotes from these categories of people whom you have spoken to, yes, would have enriched the presentation. So when you, I know it's a, given a short time, it's difficult, yes, to do justice. So when you write it up, I hope that you write it up for a publication. So when you do write it up, you must incorporate these aspects to show whether really the changed scenario of law really has made a change in, we see that they are more visible, yes, but just being present is not enough, whether they are really included in everyday lives of the normal people of the city of Kolkata, of the general people of the city of Kolkata, especially in public festivals, for example, is an example. If you bring in the actual cases, it would be more grounded.
Ma'am, the reason of the topic I have chosen, because for last 5 years, apart from being a student, I work in a Rotary with the club, and it was our initiative 5 years ago to do a porikrama type, where the judgment will be done by the sex worker community, and the sex worker community, the thing is done by Durbar, and another one is transgender community. The event that we used to do, like still we do it. So that is the inspiration behind this thing. From there, like the event name is Mati Durga, and the catch line is Tader Choke Mayer Dekha.
So use this as a case study.
Yes,
and sort,
yes,
of talk about public festivals.
Surely, ma'am.
And talk
Surely.
about social
I'll add
change.
on to a lot of things,
yes,
to this.
Since you have the experience, you sort of you can do this actually and say that this is an initiative done by these people, but at the same time, what is the sort of actual situation on ground?
Okay.
Has that changed? So that would be a good paper, actually.
Okay,
right?
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Taking from Shoma ma'am, what I was thinking is that probably not all pandals of Kolkata are equally inclusive for the LGBTQ community.
Ma'am, around 120 pandals like Shuruchi Shongo, Chetla Ogroni, and all, including the big ones, which everyone of us know.
That's right, the big ones.
Exactly.
So when you are continuing, if you are continuing with this particular topic in the future for more research on it, I think it would be interesting for you to find out that kind of difference between which are the pandals which are accepting, or they are trying to portray LGBTQ visibility also, because that is a factor for them to become more visible as a pujo in general, as a whole.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
So that debate and that kind of a power dynamic, that is, where the LGBTQ may even be used for the bigger pujas, and try to, trump each other or something like that. That would be something interesting to look at, probably. Okay?
Okay,
Otherwise,
I'll
good.
surely take note of it. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to add on, Rajdeep, very good presentation. And as
Thank
you
you, ma'am.
mentioned that you are aware of Durba's work. So Durbar itself conducts a Durga Puja, correct? So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
could engage with that and see how the neighborhood people are, if they are visiting the pandal, and what is their experience and all of that, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So the next presenter is Mamta Sahu. Is she there? Please finish it within 8 minutes. I have sort of instruction from the organizers also to wind it up as quickly as possible, because they need to move towards the next program. So as we move on, I think, I'm so sorry, but a little time constraint exists. So after Mamta Sahu, it is Namrata Basu. Yeah, just be nearby. And then Ahona Bhattacharya.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, professors, teachers, and I'm a little bit of nervous. I'm sorry. My name is Mamta Sahu, and I'm from Department of Sociology, Sister Nivedita University. And today I am presenting my paper is Digital Capital and Educational Inequalities, Rural-Urban Divides in Student Learning During COVID-19 in Kolkata. And so let's start with this introduction, little bit of introduction, that the COVID-19 pandemic amplified existing educational inequalities by imposing sharp rural-urban divides in access to digital capital. Students across India face significant disruptions in learning, but the impact was particularly stark in cities like Kolkata, where urban learners largely adapt to the online classes, while their rural counterparts struggle with poor connectivity, lack of digital devices, and minimal institutional support. So this study builds on Pierre Bourdieu's capital theory to frame digital capital. Urban students benefited from the better infrastructures and support systems. With that, the gap widening existing educational and social inequalities. Here I taken two objectives. The study how digital access and skills affects rural and urban students learning COVID-19 in West Bengal. And the second one is to examine how schools, governments, and NGOs responded to bridge educational inequalities during the pandemic. So this is my methodology, where I've taken secondary research and qualitative and interpretive. And this is sources of government reports, journals, articles, where I've taken this methodology, and focus areas like digital access, literacy, infrastructure, and institutional responses. My goal is to interpret how digital capital shape learning inequalities in rural-urban contexts. There is my main findings, where I'm explain that how these digital capital and educational inequalities reflects, conceptualizing digital capital in education based on Bourdieu's capital framework theory, linking digital resources to cultural and social advantages, the digital divide in rural and urban West Bengal, sharp contrast in access to devices and internet connectivity, socioeconomic and cultural factors affecting digital learning, which is a very important part of this main findings, that income, parental education, and gender norms affect usage. That affects a lot in rural areas, not in much in urban areas. So role of schools and teachers in the digital shift, how they adapt this digital shift in this COVID-19 pandemic, like teachers' preparedness, training, and adaptability to online tools in West Bengal and in Kolkata, how they develop this things in this time period of COVID-19. Governments and NGO interventions initiatives like Shiksha Bandhu, Diksha app, and NGOs led learning bridges, and impact on learning outcomes like drop in engagement and widening achievements gaps in rural students, and reframing digital capital and educational equity. That was digital literacy who must be treated as a basic educational right. So this is my main findings, where I have explaining that how this digital problems behind, like in the rural and urban, that social stratification or hierarchies were created in especially in rural areas, because these students are they are not very much aware of this technological advancement in that time period in COVID-19. That COVID-19 arises very much in that time, like 2021 to 2022. In that time period, school students suffers a lot, and they have no access in that time, and they want to study a lot in from their schools and all. Even they want to go to another schools and flourish their knowledge and all, but they have that access. In that time, they have like many students have not been able to study further for future education. They faces a lots of problems in that time of COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the main thing which I published to all of you, and this is my conclusion, that I have thought that this COVID-19 pandemic exposed the deep digital inequalities in India's education system, with that rural students faced limited connectivity and low digital literacy, which created the massive social stratification in rural urban students. I'm literally focusing on the basic, that school students are not be able to flourish their knowledge after 10, 12 when they wanted to become and go to the school, colleges, university in that time, because this pandemic created a lot of massive problems in rural areas especially. So this secondary data shows that digital gaps mirror social hierarchies, and government initiatives were helpful but not fully inclusive, because in West Bengal, that I have found in many journals and articles, that MHRD policies, they wanted to flourish, but the main thing is not to be very much in very many policies are there in West Bengal, but the thing is in rural areas, these problems are very much because they are not aware about these policies, because they have that lack of educational systems. So that is the thing, and building digital capacity and equitable access is crucial for the future. The study calls for bridging the digital divide to ensure educational justice. So here these references, and thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you? Yeah. Mamta, thank you. There are three kinds of divide. I'm glad that you brought in both you, but there are three kinds of divide, and the experiences of each sections are different. For example, one is this divide between private and government schools.
Yeah.
Their experience of the pandemic, their experience of education during the pandemic is different, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at digital divide during the pandemic, you have to look at the experience of both private and government schools differently, right? The other is the rural and urban, which you have mentioned, but this is again rural private, rural government will be different.
Yeah.
And again is the question of class and gender. So all these intersections make the experience, makes digital divide a complex idea.
Yes,
So you have to, are you going to carry forward this work?
Yes,
If you are going to do, then you have to look at how each influences the other.
Okay, ma'am. Sure,
Right?
sure.
And get data accordingly. And
Okay,
when you sort of, then when you get the data, you will see how the question of digital divide is not only very clear, but it is very overlapping.
Yes, ma'am.
It is overlapping. So if you present that, then, or if you publish it, it will be good.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All the best. Next is Namrata Basu. Okay. 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm really sorry
No,
to
ma'am,
do this,
it's
but
okay.
I have no alternative actually.
No, it's okay, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. We are running out of time, and definitely I'm gonna end this session if I'm not so wrong. So today my topic for discussion is navigating digital. Sorry. Am I audible now? Yes. Okay. My topic for discussion right now is navigating digital labor and gendered care work, a comparative study of dual career couples in Kolkata's IT and non-IT sectors. Now, for the past 2 days, we have been listening so much about digitalization and technological advancements. Now, my topic area is how it is impacting, influencing the everyday life, day practices, and the work sectors, the living sectors, the experiences altogether of both the IT and non-IT sector employees. Now, why have I chosen, or why am I comparing these two sectors significantly? Because these two sectors reflect two significant work cultures. And with this variation, I would also like to point out to the intersection of gender, intersection of the work cultures and the coping strategies, which are completely different in the IT sector as well as the non-IT sector. Now, coming to my introduction part, as we all know that the dual career couples, this concept has been given long ago by Ropoport and Ropoport in the year 1980, and this arrangement talks about an arrangement where both the partners are actually actively pursuing professional careers while managing household and familial responsibilities. Now, in my study, I have specifically chosen IT sector people especially the software professionals and the IT-enabled services. And when I am talking about the non-IT sector employees, I have specifically focused on the private sector employees, as in the educators, the private tutors, the healthcare professionals, and the manufacturing employees. Now, while I was doing my study, the primary challenges that they all faced is how do they manage the professional as well as personal responsibilities, which is highly influenced by traditional gender norms, which we will be talking about in my later half of my study, where I have seen that in the non-IT sector, this gender disparity actually reflects much than we have seen in the IT sector. And of course, there are job structures, the available support systems, especially in the context of post-COVID transitions. The support systems has been a very, very important and a crucial role to play. To my next slide, I have talked about the theoretical frameworks. Now, since my work is on the dual career couples, so I have a focus on the work-life balance perspective. To it, I have added with the boundary theory, as there are two particular boundaries, personal and the professional boundaries, and many a times we see an overlapping of their experiences. Then I have talked about the gender division of labor, like how gender norms is affecting the unpaid work, the unpaid division of labor. We always talk about, or there are a lot many articles and write-ups on the division of labor, but there has been a very, very less work on the division of unpaid labor. And then, of course, I have taken into account the institutional context theory, as in how far the institutions are coming forward, and they are keeping their keeping their arrangements flexible for their employees. Especially in this context, I would like to mention about the corporate social responsibility mechanisms. Then I have talked about the intersectional analytical base, which is again considering the intersection of gender, class, and occupation. And I have seen that the intersection of personal and professional and also the societal domains are very, very crucial over here. The research questions which I have kept over here is, how does digital labor affect the time use patterns, as in the utility of time is very, very important. How do the gender roles and care responsibilities are perfectly different for both IT sector employees and the non-IT sector employees. And thirdly, what are the organization and the household strategies there to support these workers, these employees, to have an equitable division of labor. Now, while I was conducting my studies, although there are a lot many volumes of work on work-life balance, on the disparities in maintaining the balance, but I found very little work on focusing the variations between the IT and non-IT sector, as I've mentioned, that it is actually focusing and showcasing a very significant, different work culture and coping strategies altogether. In my next slide, which is my methodology part, I have applied the mixed method approach, and of course I have followed the comparative and descriptive research design. Comparative, as I am primarily focusing IT and non-IT sectors, and descriptive, as because I am describing the situations. Sample size is of 100, wherein I have taken 50 couples from IT sector and 50 from the non-IT sector. Now, data collection methods, same structured interviews, questionnaires were conducted.
Please move to your key findings.
All
To your key findings, please.
My focus area is primarily three. Number one is work arrangement. Secondly is division of unpaid labor. And the third one is the use of digital tools in managing work-life balance. Now, when I'm talking about the work arrangements, I have specifically seen the nature of employment areas, especially the on-site modes, the remote work facilities, and also the hybrid mode of work structures. Then I'm talking about the flexibility in scheduling and controlling over the working hours that the IT people have on. And then finally, I'm moving on to the impact of digitalization on work intensity and boundary management, because many a times I have found that the IT people have a plus that they can actually manage their working hours, unlike the non-IT people, because they do not have any flexibility and they are largely resting on the rigid work hours. Now, coming to the division of unpaid labor, which is my second focus area, I primarily am talking about the allocation of domestic activities and caregiving within the household framework. Also taking into consideration the gender expectations and the negotiative roles of the couples in their everyday life. And thirdly, the efforts of digital work on household equity and emotional labor. Now, emotional labor in one particular concept which has been kept aside. But however, I found emotional labor as a very, very important factor over here, because many a times it is remaining unnoticed by many of people. Now, to my next slide, the major findings in my study, especially focusing on the IT sector, I found that the employees had a very greater access to technology and flexible time schedules, as I've already mentioned. And now what is happening because of this is the blurring of work and life, work and home boundaries. We are not seeing any balancing act, but however, I have seen that there has been a blurring of boundaries because of the long working hours, because of the high digital stress, the emotional fatigue, and women, however, continue to bear the domestic work despite having flexibility. However, in case of non-IT sector, they are definitely characterized by rigid schedules and limited access to flexibility. There is less access to digital tools and more dependency on the rigid work schedules. Men's contribution over here, it remains minimal. Although I am pointing out that it is minimal, but I have found that especially in the non-IT sector, men are actually willing to work together with their counterparts. Unlike the IT sectors, we have this notion in us that the IT people, since they are much more exposed to education and much more exposed to campaignings and awareness. However, my major finding was that the non-IT sector men were much more willing to help their counterparts whatsoever. And definitely, I would like to highlight this part wherein I have compared my findings in terms of work flexibility, digital access, gender equality, work-life balance, and stress level. As you all can see, work-life balance is there in both the sectors. It is definitely the stress level is high in both the sectors, but the stress level in case of IT sector, it is rising from digital fatigue, and in case of non-IT sector, it is more coming from the rigid work schedules and limited flexibility. Of course, I would like to have a few discussion on these points. I'm just quickly recapitulating these points again. Digital labor is reshaping the family and work experiences of people in everyday life. Although we talk about gender equality, but gender inequality still persists, and there are many ways to which we can actually erode gender inequality. The first step towards it being couple resilience mechanisms. You know, in especially what I found in my study is in this post-COVID situation, people are now much more vocal about their sufferings, and you know, I have seen that people are coming forward to help their counterparts. Couple resilience mechanisms, including adaptive strategies, including understanding, mutual understanding, sharing of responsibilities, as in no, this work is not only stipulated for you to do. If you are going to work, I am also going to work, and if you are coming back, I am coming back, and I am also have this responsibility to make tea and serve the food. So this is kind of, although I am stating it again and again, although this is very minimal, but the start has already been there. It's the beginning of the new beginning. All right, and definitely I would end up with my topic for discussion today, that there's this scope for sustainable care economy. And policy implications, there are many, but I would only like to stress on the Expanded Maternity Benefit Act, which is also including paternal leave, because a child needs both mother and father. So Government of India has actually come up with a paternity leave. Okay, so yes, I'm done with my session. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really sorry. Your work is significant, and I'm really sorry for hurrying you through it, because I was given the instruction I should finish definitely everything.
I could not reach till my conclusion, ma'am. However, I ended up.
I'm grateful that you ended where you did. My only comment to you is that please publish it. Is it your PhD work?
I have done my PhD work.
So please publish it, because it has many dimensions.
Sure.
And it is, I believe that this was done in Kolkata.
In Kolkata.
Yeah, so studies on Kolkata are fewer, so that way it will be a very important
Definitely, especially from IT, non-IT, this comparison is very few.
Yes, and also please publish it in a journal. Don't publish a book chapter. Please publish it in a journal, the reason being that more people read it. More people will get to read it, more people will get to cite it.
More reachability.
Yeah, more reachability. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all for... Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Namrata. This is a very important study, as ma'am mentioned, and I would just like to mention when you are speaking about couple resilience mechanism, I'm sure you are aware there is a field of study called resilience research. So there's one institute in Germany in Leibniz. So you would maybe like to take a look at that.
Definitely, ma'am. I will look into that.
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I am Mohana Bhattacharya, student of Sister Nivedita University, Kolkata, and today my paper is on influencing femininity, the role of female influencers in sustaining gendered norms. In contemporary times, we find multiple aesthetic cues in the digital media, be it the popularization of Stanley Cups or the clean girl makeup trends. Talking about the aesthetics that we find on social media, we refer to the overarching visual style and theme of a profile or content characterized by a consistent color palette, image style, typography, and layout that creates a cohesive and visually pleasing experience. The commonality between all these trends is that they are reminiscent of age-old stereotypical norms of being a woman in the society. As women are only portrayed in binaries, they are bound to conform themselves to any of these aesthetic cues to align with the social expectations. It has been seen that these trending products are predominantly promoted by the female social media influencers. They reinforce the idea that femininity is best performed through adherence to current aesthetics and consumer behavior. Therefore, this paper tries to examine how female social media influencers contribute to the perpetuation of stereotypes about women through the promotion of these contemporary lifestyle trends. In the next slide, I have the objectives. The first one is to analyze how female social media influencers reinforce stereotypical norms of femininity through the promotion of contemporary lifestyle trends through digital media. The second one is to examine the aesthetic cues that connect digital consumer trends to long-standing socially assigned roles of women. And the third one is to explore the role of social media as a space where gender norms are reproduced and reinforced. In the next slide, I have the methodology in which I have used content analysis, where I have mainly focused on Instagram as a social media platform and the series of contents that are posted and shared there after the COVID period, that is from 2021 to 2025 time period. Next, I have my theoretical framework in which I have mainly focused on Rosemary Tong's study on gender and media, where we find a very critical insight in which she highlights that media is never a neutral reflection of reality, but an active constructor of gendered realities. By positioning consumerism as a pathway to empowerment, influencers blurred the line between self-expression and conformity to patriarchal norms. And next, I have the concept of intersectionality by Kimberly Crenshaw. In this, for instance, we find when a middle-class urban women may find themselves pressurized to align with influencer-driven aesthetics. On the other hand, working-class women or women from the marginalized communities may be excluded due to the lack of economic capacity to participate in these consumption practices. Next, I have the literature review in which I have tried to analyze certain articles. The first one is the article on women's issues in India, Role and Importance of Media by P. Ocha. It illustrates how media not only reflects but reinforces gendered societal norms by limiting women's roles to the personal sphere while foregrounding men's public contributions. The article evidences a consistent pattern of women being portrayed in trivial or decorative contexts. Next, I have the article by Tuchman, that is Women's Depiction by the Mass Media, which argues in two specific divisions, distorted and skewed representation. He also talked about the threefold mechanism of the symbolic annihilation of women, where the first one is omission, where women are simply missing from media frames or narratives of the media houses. Secondly, we have the trivialization, in which women's roles are minimized, often reduced to the boundaries like appearances, domestic duties, including homemaker or caregiver. Thirdly, I have condemnation, focusing on the defiance of traditional gender norms that includes negative portrayal, framing women as a marginalized entity of the society. Next, I have the article by Watkins and Emerson's, which traces the evolution of critique of misinterpretation to inclusive research practices. They further argue that future feminist media scholarship must critically engage with emerging fields such as pornography and globalization, often trivializing feminist movements like the misleading headline of the journalist during the pageant protest in New Jersey in 1968, where they boldly claimed it as bra burners, in which it shows women as a marginalized section of the society. Next, I have the case studies in which I have mainly studied the contents shared by two Indian female social media influencers. The first one is Komal Pandey. She's a popular Instagram fashion influencer with over 1 million followers, represents a striking case of how social media constructs and circulates normative femininity. Through meticulously curated visuals, stylized outfits, and specific brand collaborations, her online persona encapsulates the aesthetics of empowerment that simultaneously reinforce patriarchal ideals of beauty, desirability, and consumption of a woman. She is characterized by a soft feminine aesthetic which involves specific body type, pastel palettes, dewy makeup, sleek silhouettes, and emotionally expressive poses. Through this content analysis of selected posts and brand collaborations of certain brands like L'Oreal, Maybelline, and others, it is evident that these campaigns use female influencers like Komal Pandey and others as instruments to normalize consumer-driven gender ideals and sustain patriarchal gender norms. The second one is the contents of Kusha Kapila. In this contrast to fashion influencers who embody aspirational femininity, Kusha Kapila, one of India's leading digital creators, represents a different but equally gendered mode of online womanhood, that is the performance of relatability. Through humorous sketches, reels, and brand collaborations, Kusha constructs an image of the modern Indian woman who balances empowerment and self-expression. Yet, this digital persona also reveals how femininity is socially coded and commodified even under the guise of humor and authenticity. Next, I have the findings and interpretations. While analyzing and constructing this paper, one thing that has been highlighted is that several studies and articles only focus on print and television media rather than social media, which is quite a rising platform in today's time. And it only talks about the kind of male dominance that has been portrayed in these media houses. But in this paper, we try to analyze that how even women actually sustain patriarchal norms within them, even in the disguise of empowerment and desirability, they still follow those stereotypical norms in any other way. And these are my selective references. Thank you.
It's quite commendable. Thank you, Ahana. I have one or two things to say, and that is, well, these are female influencers, and you've studied their posts, and you have studied the way in which they represent themselves, etc. One way in which one can also try to look at this whole phenomena more critically is also to look at the comments or responses of people who are being influenced by them. And even within those comments, do you find, or did you find, or you could look for, people who are critical of the form of representation that what she stands for, right? Among both men and women, right? Because this is a media-mediated kind of a representation, which is very different from the real representation. So who is the target group that she's trying to influence? And in reality, what does the target group, I mean, you have responses, so you could analyze those responses, and also you could analyze in real life whether people are even aware of her. I will go and look it up today because I was not aware. Sure. And I was thinking, who are these people and who are they trying to influence, and whether the influence actually works. People may look through, people may scroll through, people may read, but are they really being influenced is a question that you need to engage with to see. They may have followers, but, well, followers, yes, but does having so many lakhs of followers really mean that the followers are influenced by what she's representing? Because our lives are different. We live differently. The class is different. The kind of things we do in our everyday life, the struggles are different. So what aspect are we influenced by, right? So one could also look at it a little more critically to see whether they are really influences in the sense, in the way in which they are.
Sure, ma'am.
Right? That is one thing that I thought.
Ahana, just a suggestion. Time nahi hoy to, but you are talking about two YouTubers and their content. If you could have shown a bit of video clippings, or you should have, then it would be helpful for you to also justify what you are saying, and it would have been more interesting for the audience as well. But time is limited, I understand, but for bigger presentation, and later you can incorporate that in your presentation. Okay.
Sure,
Thank you.
ma'am.
I just have one thought. You were talking about what's her name? Komal Pandey.
Komal Pandey.
Komal Pandey herself has gone through quite a bit of an aesthetic transformation herself from the beginning of her career on YouTube to what she is today. So if you could have touched a little bit upon that and talk about maybe, I mean, I know probably that was not the scope of your paper, but maybe later you could look at it, that how her own aesthetic transformation may be related to, first of all, an influencer getting influenced by whatever is happening around, and then how maybe that, as ma'am was talking about, that how is it actually influencing the people, because she also gets a lot of hate comments and all those kinds of things. So maybe you could look at those kinds of things later, right? Otherwise, a good presentation, as always.
Thank you.
So Ahuna, very good presentation.
Thank you.
And as Shoma ma'am said, you know, you might want to ask, what are they trying to influence, right? So you could connect it with this field of research called sexuality studies. Through fashion, is the spectrum of sexual expression in India changing, transforming? If yes, how? Right? And if not, what is your analysis of that? So you could, in your paper, when you're writing it, you could expand the scope and connect it, right?
Sure.
So if she is influencing, what is she, or if they are influencing, they are influencers, what is the, you know, what are they trying to influence? And as ma'am said, are they really getting influenced? What is their understanding of it and all of that, right? So maybe you would like to explore this in your paper.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank
Sure.
you.
I just want to thank each and every one of you who stayed back. It's a real challenge. I know that you had your presentation quite at the fag end. I'm not at fault. Your head of the department is at fault. She assigned me last, and she assigned all of you also in the last session. So we are here, right, at the fag end of the day. But thank you so much for presenting, for staying, and for sort of doing your research. It is heartening, and I hope that you will carry this forward. You will continue to sort of engage with what you have received today, and you will sort of improve on your writing, you will improve on your paper, you will sort of add some empirical dimensions to it, and you will publish it. That is the takeaway from a gathering like this, right? So all the best, and I want to sort of finally end my bit by thanking Seema. I have two students here, Seema and Rikia, both whom I have taught, and I also know Priyanka. I just met Chandni for the first time. Thank you. I mean, it is really nice to, it's a very good feeling to see that our students have reached wherever they have. You know, they are faculty members now in this institution. So I also thank Professor Moitri Chaudhary. I think she suggested my name to Seema. Seema knows me, but still, I mean, that involve her. And so I mean, this is the first time I'm in Sister Nivedita University, and it's very nice, the hospitality, the food, and the warmth that I have received. Thank you so much for everything.